Life can be a series of life can be a series of peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. Life can be a series of peaks and valleys. There are highs and lows and twists and turns which make it a real wild ride. And from time to time, we can all feel down, and we all have our own unique ways of trying to bring balance and positivity into our lives. Things that make us feel like we're back on track and help us to boost our mood and feel happier or healthier. In this episode, I will let you in. In this episode, I will let you in on five of my favorite five of my favorite mood boosting rituals that are my go-tos. That are my go-tos. That are my go-tos. Whenever I'm feeling stressed, tired, or blue. Here we go. Life can be a series of peaks and valleys. Life can be a series of peaks and valleys. There are ups, highs and lows. There are highs and lows and twists and turns, highs and lows and twists and turns, which make it make it a real wild ride. And from time to time, we can all feel down. From time to time, we can all feel down. And we all have our own unique ways of trying to bring balance and positivity into our lives. Things that make us feel like we are back on track and help us to boost our mood and feel happier and healthier. In this episode, I will let you in on five of my favorite mood boosting rituals that are my go-tos. That are my go-tos. That are my go-tos. Whenever I'm feeling whenever I'm feeling stressed, tired, and blue. Here we go. This probably comes no surprise to you. This probably comes as no surprise to you. This probably comes no surprise to you. But when my mood needs a lift, there's nothing quite like going outside and getting some fresh air and running. For me, running isn't just exercise, but it's also a kind of moving meditation. So it's also a kind of moving meditation. I can forget, at least most of the time. I can forget. I'm not always successful, but I try and forget my stress and instead focus on my breath, my steps, and the path ahead. After a good run, I feel mentally refreshed, accomplished, and I often find that my emotions soften too. I feel more charitable and more sympathetic. I feel more charitable and sympathetic. Number two, taking a nap. If I am in a bad mood, if I'm in a bad mood, it's usually because I'm tired. It's usually because I'm tired. So napping is so essential when I feel drained or overwhelmed. So napping is so essential when I feel drained or overwhelmed. Feel drained. When I feel drained or overwhelmed. It's my way of giving my body and brain a break. It's my way of giving my body and my my mind a break. My body and my mind a break. 몸과 마음에 휴식을 준다. I need to give my body and my mind a break. I need to give my body and my mind a break. I need to give my body and my mind a break. Give my mind. I need to give my mind a break. Lately, I've just been taking 10 to 15 minutes naps at my desk. Lately, I've just been taking 10 to 15 minute naps at my desk. Yeah, at my desk. When it's time for a break, I put on my headphones. I put on my headphones. I turn on a YouTube power nap video that plays some background brown noise, and I pass out for just a few minutes. Sometimes I will only fall asleep for 5 minutes or so, but it does the trick. A power nap like that can help me to charge my batteries and allow me to return to my desk with clarity and enthusiasm. It's amazing how just a little snooze can turn a rough day around. Number 3, having a snack. There's no doubt about it. For me, food has a huge influence on my mood. When I'm feeling down or irritable, it's likely because I'm hungry. Have you heard that word? Before? It's a combination of hungry and angry, and it describes the feeling of being in a bad mood because you're hungry. It describes the feeling of being in a bad mood. So when I'm hungry, I always reach for a snack. These days, my go-to snack is a banana or sometimes 2 bananas. And even though I personally think that other snacks like junk food like cookies or donuts are more delicious, I find that I usually feel worse after eating them. I usually feel worse after eating them. On the other hand, if I reach for some fruit, like banana, I usually feel better. So to boost my mood, fruit is the best. Number 4, standing in the sunshine. Whenever possible, I make it a point to step outside and soak up the sunshine. I make it a point to. Whenever possible, I make it a point to listen to an English podcast. Whenever possible, I make it a point to walk outside. Whenever possible, I make it a point to read out loud some transcript. I make it a point to There's something just amazing about feeling the sun's warmth on my skin, and it's an instant mood booster. I usually try to do this in the morning. When I first wake up. Of course, it's easier in the summer than in the winter. It's easier in the summer than winter in the summer than in the winter. But I do my best regardless of the season. But I do my best regardless of the season. I close my eyes. I let the sun's rays I let the sun's rays wash over my face, and I trip out a little bit about the fact that there's this huge burning star 150 million kilometers away that helps me to start my day in a good way. Number 5, watching a funny video clip on YouTube. Watching a funny watching a funny video clip on YouTube. Video clip. We all need a good laugh. We all need a good laugh now and then. We all need a good laugh now and then, and YouTube is my go-to place for an instant source of humor. Usually I watch a performance or an interview with one of my favorite comedians. People like Norm Macdonald's, David Letterman, Conan O'Brien, or someone like that. There are a whole bunch of comedians that I enjoy, but there's nothing quite like good a good laugh to cheer you up, boost your mood and make you feel more positive. But there's nothing quite like a good laugh to cheer you up, boost your mood and make you feel more positive. So these are the 5 things that I turn to whenever I need a mood boost. Mood boost. Whenever I need a mood boost. They're tried and true methods that works for me. They're tried and true methods that works for me. But we all have our own individual ways of finding happiness in our lives, and it's important to discover what works best for you. We all have our own individual ways of finding happiness in our lives, and it's important to discover what works for you. So go ahead, find your own mood boosting methods, and let them help you to become a happier and more positive version of yourself. Charitable, tried and true. Okay. Hey Andrew, how are you doing today? Hey Andrew, I'm doing well as always. I'm doing well as always. As always, good. Glad to hear it. And our main topic of conversation for today is audiobooks, which in my opinion have absolutely exploded in the last 5 to 10 years or so. Probably due to, well, the internet. You know, like back in the day, I remember listening to audiobooks back in the day when I was a kid. Cassie, back in the day, back in the day, I remember listening to audiobooks back in the day. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. It was just something that I really enjoyed doing. Actually, when would take road trips with my family, in Canada, to go from one city to the next city often takes like 5 or 6 hours of driving. If we went to go see some of my cousins or go see, if we went to go see, go see, we went to go see, we went to go see my parents, We went to go see. We went to go see. Go see. Hmm? Go see. Go see. Hmm? We went to go see my parents on this last weekend. We went to go see my mother in my parents-in-laws the last weekend. Went to go see. We went to go see some of my cousins or my family members that live in other cities. We'd have to drive for like 5 or 6 hours. We'd have to. Okay, we'd have to. We'd have to. We'd have to. We'd have to. We'd have to drive for like. We'd have to drive for like 5 or 6 hours. My my folks my folks always had audiobooks and radio dramas in the car that we could listen to during those long road trips, folks. But I remember that they would be on cassette tape, cassette tape. Oh, cassette tape, and they would be in like this huge album that had like 10 different cassette tapes. So if you wanted to listen to the whole book, it was really difficult because you had to carry this massive album with all of these cassette tapes in it, and that was just not very convenient. That was just not very convenient. But we now with the internet and digital media and fast internet, it's just natural that audiobooks have exploded in the last decade or so. And so, yeah, I thought it could be a fun topic to talk about today, Cassie, audiobooks. Yeah, I'm excited to hear your opinion on audiobooks. I have some of my own opinions, and we can discuss those too. But I want to hear your new venture into the land of I want to hear your new venture into the land of audiobooks, I guess. Like you said, it's not new, but your most recent excursion into the land of your audiobooks. Yeah, so I guess I've always had this bias. I guess I always have this, I've always had this bias. I guess I've always had this bias. Because you like thinking that reading a book is the best way to consume the book. I always thought that you have to read the book to fully appreciate it, to fully appreciate it. And that by listening to it, you're not really getting as much as possible out of the experience. And I also had this opinion, probably wrongly, like this probably a wrong opinion to have, a bad opinion to have. But I always got a little bit annoyed with the people when they say, I read the book, but they didn't read the book. Actually, they just listened to the book. Yeah, I've also had that opinion, which I agree with you. It's probably totally biased. It's probably totally biased. It's probably totally biased. Right, but like when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I read that book," and then later you found out that they just listened to the book. I don't know. Maybe we need to actually change the word that we use because it feels like we're missing a verb in English. We need a new verb to say that you consume a book, but you didn't read it. Because many people will say, "Oh, I read that book," but in reality, they listen to it. So I guess I always had this predefined notions and opinions about what it means to read a book and to listen to a book. And so because of that, I always thought a little bit negatively about audiobooks. I mean, to tell you the truth, I've I've enjoyed it listening to audiobooks in the Korean language, and I thought it's really helpful for me with some of the novels that I've read in Korean. Now there aren't a lot of Korean audiobooks, and sometimes it's really difficult to find a book that you want to listen to. I've had to go through a lot of trial and error. I've had to I've had to I've had to go through I've had to go through I've had to go through a lot of trial and error and jump through a lot of hoops to try and get audiobooks in Korean. I've had to become members of different apps and services, and sometimes the book that you want the book that you want will be on one app, and then another book that you want isn't on that app. So you have to join two different apps, and it can be expensive that way. I've had to join different libraries to try and download the audio content, which is really difficult. I've had to buy audiobooks. Actually, the Google Play Store is the best place for Korean audiobooks that I've found. Just a tip for you, Cassie. Google Play Store got it. Yeah, but I've done this a lot in Korean in the past, and I found it to be really useful. But these days, as our listener will know, I'm really obsessed with running and obsessed with marathoning, and I've been doing a lot more running these days. I've been doing a lot more running. I've been doing a lot. I've been running maybe about somewhere between 8 to 10 hours a week. So I do a little bit over an hour. I do a little bit over an hour. I do a little bit over an hour. I do a little bit over an hour a day, and a little bit over an hour, or a little bit over an hour. And that means I have a lot of time just to listen to audio content. Sometimes I like to listen to music, but I've found that when I'm running, I'm not very good at listening to Korean. In an ideal world, it would be very easy for me to focus on the language and to run at the same time. Eh? In an ideal world, it would be very easy for me to focus on the language and to run at the same time. But for whatever reason, it's just not too compatible. They're like in incompatible practices, I think. Probably because you're focusing on your breathing, but then you also need to focus on the language, right? Yeah, I'm just not one of those geniuses that has a lot of attention. I just have a little bit of attention. So I can focus on exercising and listening in a second language at the same time. I mean, I can, but I'm missing a lot of content. I'm missing a lot of content as well. So I thought, hey, you know what? For those times when when I'm just out there doing some long kilometers on the trail, let's just listen to some English audiobooks instead. And so I found this really great app on my phone, which is nice for listening to audiobooks. I can load up my own content easily, the books that I want to listen to. And there are some great features for making notes if I need to make a note. If I need to add a bookmark, I can add a bookmark, which is really good because the app that I was using previously, I'd be listening to an audiobook. An audiobook are kind of a case by case. Each one is different. Sometimes each audio file for sometimes each audio file for the audiobook will be a chapter. Sometimes each audio file will be a chapter, and then sometimes you will just have this huge audio file that's like 20 hours long, and it's just the whole book in one file. The whole book in one file. And in that kind of situation, you really need to be able to you really need to be able to add a bookmark. You really need to be able to add a bookmark. Really, you really need to be able to. You really need to be able to bookmark. Because if you close your app and then you open the app again, it's going to start the file from the beginning. From the beginning. It, it's going to start the file from the beginning, like my music my music player would do that. And so that's pretty much impossible, right, to find in this 20-hour file where did I stop listening last time? Where did I stop listening last time? I think that's great too. One of the reasons why I didn't want to read audiobooks was because I love highlighting things in my books. I don't use paper books, but I will highlight using my Kindle software. Yeah, but I was curious. I haven't listened to enough audiobooks to know, but this bookmark this bookmark feature is nice. That means you could always go back and play. You could always go back and play. Go back and play. Go back and play. You could always go back and play a certain section, just like I could go back and read the highlighted version of my book. Yes, it's so nice. You can add the bookmarks. Add the bookmarks. You can make a note if you want to make a note. There are some other features. You can adjust the speed. You can adjust the speed if you want to listen faster or slower, right? You can do that as well. So I think I had a bit of an attitude shift. Attitude shift. I changed the way that I view audiobooks now because I don't think them as replacing reading. I think of them as just being a supplement to reading. And this has been huge for me going forward. Like just because I listen to audiobooks when I'm running, or I've also been running I've also been listening to them while I do chores around the house. While I do chores around the house. Do chores around the house. Do chores around the house. It's like something that I can do to learn more or to enjoy stories while I'm doing things, while I'm doing things that I can't read in those situations, while I'm doing things. Like I can't read a book while I'm running. I can't read a book while I'm doing the dishes, but I can listen to an audiobook. And it's just a way to, yeah, kill the time. It's just a way to kill the time in those moments. where I can't entertain myself with other things. Just stop. Can't entertain myself. Entertain myself. So it's been a shift in my mindset, and I've really been enjoying listening to audiobooks these days. It's been really cool. Do you listen to a specific genre, or do you try to spread out the wealth and listen to a bunch of different genres? Or do you have a favorite genre to listen to in audiobook form?